When you think of camping, do you think of an RV or tent camping? Not today. Today, we're going to talk about ways to enjoy the campground lifestyle without a tent or an RV. Today, we're going to talk about types of accommodations offered in campgrounds that you may not have thought of. I'm also going to share benefits of the campground as opposed to a hotel or an Airbnb, and talk about things to help you prepare for camping in a cabin or rental, and some drawbacks that campgrounds may create. I'm Patti Hunt, and you're listening to Inspired Travels with Patti. And this episode is really personal for me. I spent 3 years living full time in an RV. I've stayed at countless campgrounds, and I have loved the campground experience. But when a year and a half ago I had to come off the road and sell the RV, I missed the campgrounds. I really wanted to be back in the campgrounds. So I started looking at cabins and retro RVs, and I stayed in a yurt. So this is something that I've really been excited about, and I want to share with you today. I created this podcast to inspire you to travel. And travel isn't just about where you go, it's about how you live. It isn't about traveling around the world and it being expensive and complicated. Sometimes it's in your own neighborhood. For me, travel is the way to live life more fully, getting out in nature. And we're going to talk about some of those things today. Today is a solo episode, and I'm going to go through my list of accommodations and things to look for when you are going into the campground without the RV or the tent. Let's start with types of accommodations. Let's talk about cabins. Cabins can be anything from a rustic structure with just a bed in it, and I mean just the bed, to a luxury cabin. Let's talk about rustic. When I say rustic or primitive, that means literally it could just have the bed. No running water, no toilet, no shower. They often have bathhouses close by. I would imagine they always have to have a bathhouse close by. I don't know. I'm not the kind of accommodation I'm looking to stay in. Some cabins are more luxurious. They have the beautiful beds and fireplaces and hot tubs in some of them. They have beautiful decks and places to sit out and enjoy nature. And like I said, everything in between. So those are cabin type structures. The next accommodation category I want to talk about is glamping. Now, this sounds more my speed. Glamping can include things like a yurt. A yurt is an octagon type structure that's canvas. Here on the East Coast, I had never heard of a yurt, but actually there are a few of them, a number of them, at a campground called Circle M in Lancaster, and I had the opportunity to stay in a yurt. The yurt that I stayed in had a queen size bed, a sitting area, table and chairs, a kitchen with a nice size refrigerator. It had a bathroom complete with shower. It was roomy and comfortable. It had a deck on the back of it. There was a fire pit and a grill, and it had the things in the kitchen you need to do, to cook, to actually cook. So it was really cool. It included the bedding, and I just brought my pillow with me, actually, and my coffee. I had to have my coffee, even though there was a coffee maker, but I'm picky about my coffee. The next type is a glamping tent, and this is more a tent-like structure. A lot of times they're tall, so you could stand up and walk inside. And a glamping tent could have everything from a big luxurious bed to nice chairs, places to sit. And again, they vary greatly. A lot of times they don't have a bathroom inside, but there is a bathhouse nearby. The next type of accommodation is a park model. And this is a large stationary trailer like structure. And in that could be anywhere from 1 to 3 bedrooms. It could accommodate 2 to 6, 8, 10 people, depending. Sometimes it has a second layer where there's a little bunk up there for people to sleep. And so park models, again, vary greatly. I just stayed in a park model in Lancaster. There were two bedrooms. When I say full bedrooms, they're small. They're really small bedrooms. It was the size of the bed, and they had both bedrooms had private bathrooms with a shower, everything included. And it had a nice size kitchen and then a sitting area outside. There was a deck, there was a picnic table, and a fire pit. And it was just great for anywhere from 2 to 6 people could stay there easily. Well, if you like being close to the people you're going with, it would be just fine. Let's talk about something that is really cool, and that's the vintage and theme rentals. So, vintage type are like the retro RV I stayed in last year. And it's just that it was an old RV that had been completely restored. It had a queen size bed and a bunk, so for two other people. It was small, but comfortable. My daughter and I stayed for a whole weekend. There was a microwave, a little kitchenette. It had running water, bathroom, shower, a nice size refrigerator, coffee maker. So, all the important things that you need in an RV. That was really cool. And retro RVs are really popular in many campgrounds, and you can rent them. The other one is themed rentals, and themed rentals are Airstreams that have been redone. They redo cabooses to make them into ways to camp. I've never seen one. I passed by them, but I've never seen them. I think it'd be cool. They also have covered wagons you could stay in. So many things that, whatever you could imagine, people have made rentals out of and put them in campgrounds. So there's some really cool ones across the country. One of my favorite, though, is the tiny home. I've not yet stayed in one, but a tiny home is one of those places, one of those types of rentals that I definitely want. The thing about a tiny home is they're usually placed in nature. So it's like waking up in this beautiful, magical place in the woods or overlooking the water in the mountains. There's so many different places that people are now putting tiny homes, and there's just something about them that's amazing. A tiny home, the definition is usually less than 400 square feet. They are different than a cabin in that they are usually bigger, more elaborate structures. Often they have great big windows. So it's really about being set in nature in a tiny home. There's a campground called Red Rock Resort near Yellowstone that has a tiny home, and there are just windows all around. It's overlooking this mountain. It's just amazing. So that is definitely a place I am looking to go. There are also tree houses, and I'm not talking about the kind of tree house that you might have built when you were a kid. These are elaborate tree houses with all the amenities. They are up in a tree, so they are elevated. And there are some incredible tree houses across the country. I know Disney has some of them. They have a whole area that you could stay that has tree houses. So check those out. Again, the amenities are going to vary. The idea of going up and down into a tree house, I'd want to be self-contained to be able to stay for a whole weekend and not have to go up and down in and out of the treehouse. Might not be the place that I'm looking to go if I'm looking to really explore an area. So something to think about, but I think it would be so cool to stay in a treehouse. And then there are places campgrounds that actually have lodges, like hotels. So they have accommodations for people who are in an RV. It's a great way to then have your family stay in a lodge. If you are going and want the campground experience, and there's going to be a bunch of you going, but you want your separate space, you don't want to be in a cabin like close, then a lodge may be a great way to do it. There are also whole houses that you can rent. Spring Gulch in Pennsylvania near Lancaster has a whole house. I believe it sleeps 8 or 10. It is a full house. It was probably the original house from the property, and it is huge. People, whole families, groups of people, family reunions, they get together. There's outside barbecues and picnic tables and lots of space, but you still have the amenities of being in a campground. These are just some of the types of accommodations. I'm sure I've missed some. I would love for you to share with me if you have stayed in any type of accommodation other than an RV or a tent. I'd love for you to share with the community. You could put it in the comments wherever you're watching or listening. This is both on podcast, so if you're listening, you could put it in the show notes on the podcast platform. If you want to watch, which is just me talking, you could also go to YouTube, leave comments there. And I'm also on social media, Instagram, Facebook, some TikTok at Inspire Travels with Patti. Again, I'd love to hear your comments, what your experiences have been in any of these type of accommodations. Please share that with me. So why do I love the idea of staying in a campground as opposed to a hotel or an Airbnb or even a resort? And I've stayed in a lot of different places over the last however long I've been traveling. I've experienced the beautiful resorts, the beautiful hotels, down to your basic hotel. I've gone to Airbnbs and stayed. There is something about campgrounds that really makes a difference. And some of those things is convenience. So a lot of campgrounds are close to the destinations that you want to go to. So if you're looking to explore national parks, if you're looking to go to amusement type parks, if you are looking for the beach or the mountains, a lot of times you could find a campground and stay in a campground instead of a hotel. The campground also offers so much to do. If you just wanted to take a vacation in a campground, there's so much for everyone, whether you travel solo, whether you're a couple, a family, you're going for a few days, a few weeks, a month, however long you're going, the campground can offer so many different things. Some of the things you'll find in a campground are numerous trails. There's also lakes, rivers, ponds, so you could fish, you could boat, you could paddleboard. Everything you can imagine, you could find in a campground if you look for the campground that fits what you're looking to do. There's just sitting out in nature. For me, I love watching the sunset. It never gets old. If you see my social media, I really try not to post a sunset every other day. I've stopped myself from posting, but if there is a beautiful sunset, I'm out taking a picture of it. But when I'm in a campground, I'm there just enjoying it. Sunrises, I don't catch as many because I tend to sleep in a little bit, but I have been in campgrounds, made my coffee. I drink a mocha every morning, and having that cup of coffee and going outside and just sitting out and watching the sunrise is just an amazing experience. If you've not done it, I highly recommend it. And that's some of the things you get in a campground. I just recently stayed in Hershey for the Hershey RV show. I was staying at a Fairfield Inn, going and sitting outside with my coffee wouldn't have gone well. It just wasn't the place to do it. So being able to have that is great. When it comes to families, they have so many activities for the kids. I'm going to say different campgrounds offer different things. Some offer lots and lots of activities, some not as many. So you have to find the place that's right for you. Activities in a campground could include events. A lot of times, if you're there for a holiday, they have a lot of events. They have themed parties. They bring in music and have concerts. They bring in food trucks from the area, so you'll get the local foods. They have all kinds of games that are there in the campground. They do arts and crafts, and they're not all just for the kids. There's so many different things campgrounds offer. A lot of times in a campground, it's a lot about community. So some campgrounds have community fire pit areas where people get together. In Kentucky, one of my favorite campgrounds is Firefly Hills, and that's in Beattyville, Kentucky. It's one of my favorite campgrounds. There's a huge community fire pit with beautiful chairs around it, and the owner says if ever the fire is going, everybody is welcome. There's so much to do in that campground that you wouldn't expect. There's kids' activities, and there are things for kids to play on that are not your normal playground type equipment. It's all about kids and imagination. So you could find campgrounds that offer almost anything. One of the things that she also does there is you could be part of the community garden. You could help with the chickens. There's so much hands-on things to do in a campground like that. There are other campgrounds that have more structured type things. They play bingo, they have game nights, and there's different things that are offered in different campgrounds. There are a lot of sports activities, so you could do pickleball and tennis. You could do mini golf. There are campgrounds on golf courses where you can do a full 18-hole golf. So whatever you're looking for, you could absolutely find. One of the most important things for me in a campground, and the thing that I miss the most, is community. I, believe it or not, I got to admit this, I'm a bit of an introvert. So I have my time where I could get on and do a podcast episode, but I never saw myself walking around a campground and just saying hi and introducing myself. I will say I've learned to come out of my shell, and being in a campground makes it so much easier to connect with people. The the people in a campground are just different. You walk around a campground and people say hi. They act like they know you. And some people sometimes do, because as you go to different campgrounds, you'll sometimes meet some of the same people. So my favorite, again, is about community. It's about hanging out with people, hearing their stories, hearing about their adventures. A lot of times sitting around talking to people, they'll share something they did, an experience, or a place that they visited that you don't find all the time, that you don't know about just by Googling it. So now you could find these other places. It's just an incredible experience. I do love going out and exploring and finding things that are outside the campgrounds, whether it's the local coffee shop or a restaurant, trails, whether it's bike trails or walking trails and things to do. Campgrounds usually have things around it. And again, it's looking for the campground that fits the things you want to do. The other thing I think is a huge benefit being in a campground from a health standpoint. Yeah, I I think being out in a campground, leaving the phone inside, shutting off the electronics, turning off the TV, being present in nature, observing the trees. Right now, at the time of the recording, it's the start of the fall, so the trees are changing colors. There's so much beauty to see. And I think when we are doing the hustle and bustle, when we're in our homes, we miss some of that. Being in the campground, there's something about being there that changes, that makes you feel just more at ease, more relaxed. Stress is relieved just a little bit. And it's just an incredible environment to be in, whether you're solo, family, with the kids, watching kids in a campground run around playing, just being with other kids. It's just a whole different experience. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things to consider. And I have a list here of some things to consider when you're thinking about being in a campground. Some of the things are sometimes it is less private. I know that in my research that's been said. I'll be honest, that's not been my experience because I find that if I want my privacy, I can sit inside. Yes, if I'm outside, people might come over and want to talk. So there is a little bit of if you really want privacy, there are campgrounds you could go to and have the privacy. So it's not like it's not possible, it's just planning. But that's one thing to consider. The other thing to consider is weather. So when I think of going in a campground, you're thinking of the beautiful sunny weather, whether if if you want warm weather, because you want to go swimming or you want to go in the lake, or if you're looking for a campground where it's cooler and you just want to sit with a sweater on, weather is one of those things that can, you know, make or break your plans. For me, if it's raining, I try and just embrace it. I try to have a backup plan. Maybe that's a day I'm going and exploring some indoor type thing, that's available. But that is a consideration, and that's always going to be something that you can't control. Just having a plan, especially if you have kids, as to what to do if there is bad weather. Also, there are places that you'll go. So if you're in a cabin that's rustic, you're going to share space sometimes, like you're going to go into a bathhouse where somebody else has been. Sometimes they don't get cleaned as much. You want to pick those places, those campgrounds that, or people are saying, yes, they're nice and clean, they're kept clean, but shared space is one of those things to consider. The other thing is when you're going out, you're in a campground, bugs and wildlife. They can affect your camping experience. Again, if you're on the East Coast, there's a time of year, I think it's right around this time, cicadas can be bad. You're going to have mosquitoes during the summer and the warmer climates. Um, it's something to consider. Yes, there are things you could do, there are sprays and things like that. And, it's just something to think about. If that's something that you're going to see a bug and freak out, this may not be the type of, vacationing, traveling for you. Some of the other things in a hotel. In a hotel, you often get, daily service where they change the sheets, they come in and change the towels. I'm finding now in going to hotels, no matter what the hotel level is, so even the higher end hotels don't often do the rooms every day. But if that's something you're looking for, then camping may not be the way to go because you're going to have to deal with your own sheets and towels and you're not going to have people come in and clean. That said, I would imagine there are campgrounds that provide that service. I would bet that you could find that somewhere. And again, if somebody knows of a place like that, put it in the show notes. I'll be honest, again, I'm a little high maintenance, but I could go a week dealing with my own sheets and towels and not having room service. I'm just saying I could do it. I might even be able to do it for 2 weeks, but we'll have to see about that. The other thing to consider is internet cell service. Some people have booster type things, internet type things. Some campgrounds have good internet cell service. If you're going to be in a campground and you need to work, it's something to consider. If you like watching TV or being on your phone at times, that is something to think about. Some campgrounds that are more remote, like in the Poconos, terrible cell service, terrible internet. But then it was a time for me to just know that that was the case and just be off my electronics. So I I was prepared for it. The other thing when you are traveling and staying in one of these types of accommodations, it's preparing and what to pack. The first thing I would do, no matter where you are going, is first of all find out what they offer before you even book. So if you're flying somewhere, you want the sheets and towels to be there, make sure that that accommodation provides the things that you're going to need if you're flying in. I drove to the campground I went to. They did not provide sheets and towels and blanket. No big deal. bringing it. There are other cabins within that same campground that does offer the sheets and towels. So it's not just the campground overall. So you really want to check and make sure what are they providing. A lot of times it's on the website. I will often call and double check, especially if I'm flying in somewhere. I want to double check. Okay, a lot of things that I covered. I'm sure there's a lot more that I'm missing. I would love for people to share anything I might be missing here. What are your thoughts? What are your comments? Please share with me. The other thing I found out, now I'm talking a lot about camping and I'm talking about in the US, but I found out that there are campgrounds around the world and they have cabins. So my dream, my plan is to go to Italy. And, I just thought about staying in a hotel, but I was looking at some cabin rentals in Italy in a campground that just looks amazing. So this has opened up a whole new world for me. And that is definitely something I'm going to look into instead of just the hotel with the bed and the bathroom. Sounds like a great plan for me. I hope that this information was valuable for you. If you found value in it, if this inspired you to go out and adventure, I would love for you to support me by hitting the follow button. Please leave a message. And certainly, if this information is important, send it to your friends, share it with people. I would love that. You could reach me at Inspired Travels with Patti on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm on YouTube. So if you're listening to the podcast, go over to YouTube and you can watch it on YouTube. I do an episode every week. Over the past couple of weeks, I've done 2 episodes with people who have shared their hidden gems, places in this country that you just have to check out, that you're not going to necessarily find just by Googling it. So I have people sharing that. Again, thank you so much for being here and listening. And I am looking forward to sharing with you an episode of a woman who traveled with her husband and another couple for 6 months on a sailboat. That should be interesting. Can't wait to hear what she has to say. Thank you again. I just want to leave you with this. Travel isn't about where you go. It's about how you live. And I want to remind you to live life to the fullest every day.